We can change the habits, we can change the haircut, we can change some goals, but if we still maintain this old perception of ourselves, it can feel very impossible to actually reinvent yourself. Hello, my love tribe. Welcome to HeartBlend Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Christian, and I focus on mindset and wellness for sensitive souls. So welcome. I'm happy to have you. So today I want to share with you how to reinvent your self-concept. Your self-concept is the belief and perception that you have about yourself. If you're maintaining this old perception of yourself, you're not going to be able to get very far in your reinvention journey, right? But it's not only just about what you believe about yourself overall, but what do you believe about yourself in all of those different categories of your life? What do you believe about yourself when it comes to relationships? What do you believe about yourself when it comes to career or success or business or finance? What do you believe about yourself when it comes to your health and your healthy habits? So if you can take a moment to ask yourself in just those different areas of your life, what do you believe about yourself? You'll find so much information when you're actually honest, right? Like, don't say, I believe I'm great. This is not the time to apply positive affirmations. This is the time for us to get real and to get honest and to get authentic, because only then can we actually forge a new way through when we're honest with ourselves. When we know where we really are, we can start clearing some things out and start making some changes. Okay. So once you figure out what you believe about yourself holistically, then we start focusing on the person we want to become. So if you haven't listened to the previous episodes on creating that vision for yourself and why that is important to you, it'd be really good to make sure that you do that. But we need to have that mental image in our mind of that new reinvented person. What does that look like? What do you look like in the future if you were to reinvent yourself? And when you take that approach and you see everything of who that person is, what do you believe about that new person? You know you could be that, you want to become that, but what do you know about that person? A lot of times when we're creating visions for ourselves, we often reflect on observations we've had of other people that have achieved the goals that we want to achieve, and then we just kind of lay our face on top of it. But we haven't intimately gotten to know who that really is. So take a moment to really kind of research, learn more about those habits and the kinds of ways that you'll carry yourself and the type of mindset you'll have and the things that you'll do and all of that. You already have a belief that this new reinvented self is going to make your life better, or your life is going to improve in some way if you become this new self. So we've got to write down, what do we believe about that? And then you can see the gap between what do you believe about yourself now and what do you believe about your reinvented self. So that's number one when it comes to reinventing your self-concepts. Moving forward from that, we need to take a look into our inner dialogue. What kinds of things do we repeat to ourselves when no one is looking? And man, there have been so many times where I've been unkind to myself. And in that moment, it doesn't feel that deep. It's not that deep, right? I'm not like, oh man, I'm awful, right? Oh, I'm so this. Like, I'm not doing that, but I'm feeling annoyed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling just irritated that I'm not where I want to be when I say things that are unkind sometimes. And so I have to sit back and think, well, it doesn't matter the weight of what you meant when you said that. It's just being recorded every time. Every time that little inner voice, that little inner goblin is going to be repeating itself in the background. Now, the thing that is so interesting is that typically the negative things that you are saying to yourself is a regurgitation of what someone else has already said to you in the past. And maybe in some way they were in a place of authority. Maybe they were a family member or a parent or someone you trusted. Maybe they were very dominant in their energy. Maybe there was just so much embarrassment or humiliation in the time that someone has said something negative about you to you in front of people, that all of those things are taking in, and we're recording that, and we're feeling those negative emotions, those negative memories, and that becomes anchored in your mind. And the thing about those inner goblins is that it doesn't just repeat those words and those people's voices. It mimics your voice. It makes it feel really real. And if you notice, every time those thoughts, those words, those negative feelings you have about yourself come up, when do they come up the most? When you try to choose a new path, when you try to become a new person, that's when those thoughts are going to come up the most. Because the familiar feels safe. And the familiar is tearing you down. Let's break it down. I know to some people that sounds crazy, right? Like, oh, it's tearing you down. How is it safe? Our brain might think, well, this is how we feel right now at this level. Now imagine you try to go past that. You try to do more. You try to be on display even further. You expose yourself to more people. They're going to say even worse things to you. I think we better just stick with these negative comments that we can at least accept. I can't imagine accepting anything worse than this. You can't go past where you are. It's normal. Don't want you to feel bad about that, but what I'm telling you is that it is blocking you. It is shaping the perception you have about yourself. It is keeping you from moving further ahead, because the belief you have about yourself will indeed determine how much you allow yourself to move forward, how much confidence you allow yourself to express, how much you allow yourself to do, because we've got to learn how to believe in ourselves. Many of us don't know how to do that. We don't know how to believe that we are capable of doing incredible things. We make ourselves small. We shut ourselves down. We place ourselves in an unworthy position. And it can feel really scary to leave the space we're in. So the familiar feels safe, but the familiar is not always correct. Okay? So we've got to unlearn some things when it comes to reinventing your self-concept. The next piece to reinventing your self-concept, I want you to take a break from the labels that you put on yourself. Everything you call yourself, from your astrological sign, to your background, to your condition, to whatever it is, take a break. Just take a break. You can go back to the labels tomorrow. But know that the moment you label yourself, you negate yourself. As soon as you say, I am this, automatically you make yourself not something else. Who are you? What's your character? We utilize labels to identify ourselves, to create an identity, because it helps our mind to process information. When you create an identity, well, now you know how to act. Now you know what to like. Now you know who to be. Now you know how to talk and walk, because, well, this is the identity I've created for myself, and this is who I'm going to be. Now I don't have to worry about my mind being overwhelmed by all of these choices and options, because I am defining myself as this. That's what we do. That's why we do it. But I'm inviting you to take a moment to just take one day. Take one day from labeling yourself and to allow for yourself to just be a soul first. When we identify with so many labels, we block ourselves from even learning more, from receiving something different, from shifting our perspective. Sometimes we can become prideful in that label, even though deep down inside we're like, this really doesn't fit. It's really not me. I really don't feel like this. But I said I'm like this, so I gotta be like this. I can't back down. I already told everybody it was this. I already wore the hat and the hoodie that says I'm this. I have to keep up with it. I can't. That makes me look like a fraud. But you are a fraud if you are wearing a label that is not really you. So give yourself the gift of freedom. You can't reinvent yourself if you're still holding on to the past. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have an identity. I do it too. I'm a Cancer, so we We get moody sometimes, just the way I am. Well, that kind of blocks me from working on some of the traits that I have. That kind of blocks me from inviting myself to personal development on helping me cope life in a different way. I don't have to do anything that someone says I am. The next way to shift your self-concept is to be aware that other people, yes, have their external perception of you, but to not get wrapped up in that. It's so easy to do, especially family members who haven't seen you in a long time, or old friends that haven't seen you in a long time, and they just remember what they knew of you at the time when they spent the most time with you. But you could have changed, you could have grown, you could have shifted, you could have learned a new way of being. But when you go back into their presence, like, oh, you always like that. You always are doing this. You always are this type of person. And you can disagree. You can say, maybe I was then, but I'm not now. Or I'm not that person anymore. Or I've changed, or I'm changing. And I know you haven't seen that, but that's not me. I know who I am. And the disagreement is not for them. It's not to prove to them that you're better or you're different. It's to remind you to not fall back into that trap and regress, because it's so easy to do. As soon as you agree, as soon as you accept something, as soon as you say, yeah, well, you immediately start picking up those old traits again. We want to be aware that, yes, when we engage with other people and we're changing, we're shifting, they may remind you of who you used to be that you no longer want to be attached to or associated with. As long as you know at the end of the day, maybe you were that person in that space of time, but today you've overcome so much. And you don't need anything regressing you back into your old self, because other people are highly influential to us. We are social beings, we connect, and we get influenced very easily by others. Whenever we start to catch ourselves slipping into our old ways or having that negative self-talk that I am so this or I am that, whatever the statements are, let's shift it into saying, I am the kind of person who, and whatever that new reinvented self is, you insert that quality. I'm the kind of person that's healthy. And so if I'm the kind of person that's healthy, well, I'm not going to do these unhealthy things. I am the kind of person that is financially responsible. Well, if I'm the kind of person that's financially responsible, I'm not going to do irresponsible things. I am the kind of person that values connection. Well, if I value connection, then I'm not going to mistreat the people that I love. So start repeating those types of statements and affirmations and see how quickly you begin to shift and start to train your mind into not falling into those traps of comfort bad habits. We know a bad habit is a bad habit, but we do these bad habits because they give us comforts, right? We wouldn't do them if they didn't feel good to us. It gives us a sense of relief. Maybe it's smoking. Maybe it's having a drink. Maybe it's just, whatever the case may be, it just makes us feel good for that moment. It's usually very temporary. But when we're shifting, when we're changing, we are moving towards adopting new habits, new beliefs, all of these things. When we have these bad days that are going to come up, when we have these stressful days that will come up, it's easy to regress because you're like, well, these things don't feel good. These things don't make me feel better. So find some alternatives that start to kind of bridge the gap a little bit. This is why I love sharing my wellness mocktails on my Instagram. You can follow me there, but I create new wellness mocktails every week because I don't want to drink every week, but I do want to relax. And so I incorporate ways that we can relax just a little bit more than just like juice and soda and stuff. But that's just my little side note. But that's just an example of ways that we can begin to shift some of those habits. Give yourself the relief. Give yourself the pleasure. Do things that feel good to you, but they're healthy for you. And those bad habits, those bad beliefs, those bad thoughts about yourself will start to diminish, and you'll start to gain a better perception of who you are. And one more thing I want to share with you when it comes to shifting your self-concept is to raise your standards. I'll tell you a brief story. I was in the grocery store one day and I picked up some lobster, and I went to check out, and the cashier was like, lobster? I can't bring myself to purchase lobster. I don't think I can do it. And I'm thinking like, maybe she doesn't like it or whatever. And that's fine, to each his own. She's just like, I don't feel worthy of lobster. To take myself to dinner and to get a lobster or to go to Red Lobster, I just don't think that highly of myself to eat lobster, like that expensive type of food. And I was like, what? Like, it's just lobster. In fact, lobster used to be jail food because there was so much of an abundance for it. Just your perception. But guess what? Well, to some of you, that story might seem silly. And trust me, I had a little talk with her and I was like, ma'am, you are so worthy. And I want you to invest in yourself. You are the best thing you'll ever own. Invest in yourself. Just treat yourself just once. You deserve it. You work hard. I had to do that because I was like, I cannot walk away in real life with just saying like, oh, okay, have a good day. Like, no, I couldn't do that. But we're all like this, right? It may sound silly that, oh, this is lobster. It's not that big of a deal. But we do it in other areas. We do it in the certain amount of money we allow for ourselves to have. We do it in the types of relationships we allow ourselves to have. We do it when it comes to putting ourselves out there and being afraid that we'll be rejected. Even though the act itself might seem small to someone, it feels big to us. The energy is all the same. And what happens when you push forward? You raise your standards, you adhere to those standards, you don't waver because you don't believe you're not good enough or because of things you've done, mistakes you've made, or things you've been through, just in your mind tell you that you are a broken person and you're not allowed to have these things that unbroken people have. No. When you can push through and you get to the space of sticking with those standards and you receive the very thing that you felt unworthy of at one point, and you receive it at first, you're like, oh man, like this feels amazing. This is amazing. Thank you so much. I can't believe it. And eventually it just becomes the new norm and it doesn't seem so exciting or such a big deal anymore. But at one point it was. But know that at any point in time, when you elevate yourself, when you elevate your mind, those things are still going to stay there. Those experiences are still there waiting for you to just elevate you. Learn to raise your standards. Stay disciplined and stick to your standards. Don't waver. Other people will try to get what they want out of you. Other people will try to nickel and dime you. Other people will try to give me the free version of you all the time. No. You don't need to give your free version away all the time. You don't need to prove yourself all of the time. You don't need to say, look, I'm so worthy. Let me show you how much I can do in order to have the thing that I'm worthy of. It's just stuff. You just have to elevate this. And I know it's hard. It's hard. Trust me. So if this is something that you're ready to shift and to elevate and to bring to a new level, I would highly suggest to join the 28-day program for reinventing yourself, because that's where we focus on breaking those limiting beliefs, shifting your mindset, and having the support and guidance along the way for just 1 month. And you'll be amazed at how much you'll shift and change during that process. This concludes our episode on reinventing your self-concept, shifting the way you perceive yourself. And once you're able to do this, you'll see that so many things in your outside world will shift right along with it. All right. Well, if you enjoy this type of content, go ahead and subscribe, let me know that you like it, leave a comment below. And also remember to thank yourself for showing up today and thank you for tuning in to HeartBlend Podcast.